Hello, I'm Sean Milne with the GP Integrations team. Here we're going to cover how we configure the Stripe for Salesforce platform demo, leveraging Experience Cloud, loading Stripe.js and Stripe payments. So here we just click Get Started, click Authorize, Allow. Now that that's authorized, we have to add our account. Here I'm going to add by API key. You could do OAuth here if you wanted to, but for all the demos, we're doing API key-based integrations. All I have to do here is put my secret key in. Now that I have my secret key added, I'll just click Add Account. Once the account is authenticated, go ahead and say Next. We can check these if we want. This is just cleanup processes for events and sync logs. That way we clean up after ourselves on the Salesforce instance. Just go ahead and say Next. And you already have your API version installed, so you can go ahead and say Finish. And here we'll see we have our Stripe account added, and we can see we have test mode and a platform's been added. The next piece we have to do for configuration is put our publishable key into one of the scripts running. So for that, we click the little setup wheel here and click Developer Console. For this piece, we want to open a Lightning resource. So open a Lightning resource from the Developer Console. And here we'll see Stripe Payments. So go ahead and click on Stripe Payments and just say Open Selected. And for the pieces of this, the part we have to update is our controller. So over here, you can click on Controller. And if we scroll down, we'll see the Stripe publishable key is here. And what we're going to do is replace that with our publishable key from our Stripe account. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that piece. Go back into my Stripe account. Now that I'm in my Stripe account, I can simply click on Publishable Key, copy this, and then I just need to go back to my developer console to actually add this in. Now that I'm back in developer console, I'm going to paste my publishable key for my account here and simply say File Save. And once that's saved, we can ensure that the page is loading. So we can go ahead and close the developer console, go back into our Salesforce instance. And from our Salesforce instance, we're going to go ahead and click on the Setup gearbox here and go to Setup. Once we're in Setup, we're going to look for Experience Cloud. And we're going to click on All Sites. From your demo, you should have a site called Stripe Payments. You'll see the states in preview. And what you can do here is simply go to Builder. And we can see that the payment is loading. We're going to get errors based on security policy violations. That's due to the fact that we're loading this in Builder and Preview. You can go ahead and ignore that. And if you click on Preview, and once you click on Preview, go ahead and click on the Preview As button and say Preview as Authenticated User. That'll open up a new screen. And here you'll actually see the page load without error. And you can see we can put in a card number here. We can put in an expiration date, CSV code, and a zip code. When we click submit, this is actually going to submit a $20 payment, and we can see we have a Pay Now button. So I'm going to say Pay Now. You'll see we get redirected in here with payment succeeded, and that should go away here in a couple seconds because it's set to timeout. There we go. And now I can see that the screen's loaded properly. If we go back into our Stripe account and go to Transactions, we'll see that we've actually submitted a payment here for $20. Under the covers, what's happening here is if we go back into our Salesforce instance and we go back into Developer Console, there's a few pieces that make up this integration. What makes up the integration here is obviously that Lightning Web component we loaded before. So we'll go back into File, Open Lightning Resources. and Stripe payments. And we'll go ahead and say open selected. We have a component for the Lightning. Basically, there's just a bunch of attributes here that we populate via script or something else with the elements, the payment element, the publishable key, all those sort of pieces. The other pieces, we include the Stripe.js here by saying it's required, and it's loading after a certain script loads. Not important, but essentially this is the controller for the Lightning Web Component or the Aurora component that we're loading. And the Stripe.js can actually be loaded natively inside of Experience Cloud, so it doesn't have the same security problems as trying to load it in a Lightning Web Component, for example. But in an Aurora component, we can actually load it directly on the Experience Cloud. So any user looking to do a custom B2B or B2C type integration, or D2C or direct-to-consumer integration, can build an Experience Cloud payment screen following the example code that we have here. On the controller, we're doing some very similar things. We're getting the publishable key or setting the publishable key here, and then we're creating a payment intent by calling from our component the payment intent itself. And what that's doing is actually calling a Apex class. So we'll go in here to classes, and we'll go into Stripe payment controller that we have here. We'll go ahead and open this so you can see it. And this is loading the Stripe, excuse me, the Stripe payment controller. This is old. We could comment this out. This was for testing. This doesn't really do anything, so you can ignore this. What it's calling is this payment intent here, and it's actually creating a payment intent with the Stripe for Salesforce platform connector. So here we can see we're leveraging the agnostic invocable. We're making a post. We're posting the payment intents. We're passing in the Stripe account ID that we fetched up here in the select, and we use the same select here that we use in most of the flows, where we're just selecting the ID from the Stripe account. We're limiting that to 1. The next part we're doing is we're actually preparing a request body for the payment intent. So we're passing in an amount. As I mentioned, it's $20. The currency is US dollars, and we're turning on automatic payment methods. So we're not passing in a lot here. Obviously, this could be parameterized. They could pass in arguments to do this. But for the purpose of the demo, all we're doing here is just hard coding some values. For example, if we changed this to be 200 and we said save, we'll go back and we'll actually create a new payment, and we'll see that it's $200. And then once we create and pass in the request parameters to Stripe, we're taking the return, we're mapping that return and pulling out the client secret from the parsed response. So what comes back is a JSON payload, obviously, and then we turn that JSON payload into a standard map. From that map, we're just going to go ahead and set the client secret string and returning client secret. And that's allowing us to pass that client secret back into the controller here, and we pass that in with the controller. So you can see we're setting the client secret to the return value of the call that we made. So we're just setting that, and then we set the component variable client secret to the actual client secret, and that's what the controller is using here. So essentially that's all we're really doing is passing back client secret from that return. And obviously we hard coded in the publishable key, as we saw when we were doing the configuration for this. Now if we go back into our instance here and we go back into Builder, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on Preview and preview as authenticated user. Again, that'll let us make a payment here. So we'll go ahead and put in our test card number, our expiration date, and we'll click Pay Now. And here we can see payment succeeded. And if we go back into our Stripe account, refresh our transactions here, we should see a $200 payment was made. Here we go. Here's our $200 payment. The reason we see 2 here is when we loaded it in preview, it actually loaded and passed that in. But you're going to see that for pretty much every time you load Builder, because it's actually calling create payment intent. We're not looking to see what form or status that's in the demo. So when you preview it in it, it's actually loading the payment element as well. So we can see the incomplete payment there when it first loaded. The advantage to this in using Experience Cloud for our loading of the Stripe.js is we could use it for almost anything. If we wanted to load identity or the identity pieces in Stripe.js, we could. If we wanted to load any of the other pieces that Stripe.js could drive, like embedded checkout or things like that, we could also use Experience Cloud in the Stripe.js natively. So the advantage to using Experience Cloud here in Aurora is we can take the Stripe.js component, load it natively in there just by adding it to the CSP. So probably the only other pieces to call out when configuration happens is, and this is done as part of your deployment, but here you can see we added a trusted URL of the js.stripe.com. And if we go into the builder piece of this, we can actually see, whoops. We can see some of the different security settings. So users might ask, hey, how do we set security and privacy on this? And again, that error we can ignore. That's just mainly due to the fact we didn't add the builder to some of the allowed sites. So we tried to make it as secure as possible. So if we go into security and privacy, here you can see we allow framing of site pages on external domains, and we list out Stripe here as a trusted domain, and that will allow framing or the iframing, excuse me, of the Stripe.js. The next piece is the content security policy. So we're permitting access to inline scripts from allowed host, and again, we're calling out stripe.com here as well. The Lightning Locker service is on. That's why you see a lot of the errors from Builder happening, is it's blocking access to everything else, and it sees the Builder site as a different URL than it's supposed to be loading this page. And that's why you see the errors every now and then when we load the Builder. That's pretty much it. These 2 additions to the site for Stripe.com in both the framing of pages as well as the script additions, and then the CSP trusted site being added here, and we can see it's for Experience Builder sites. So those are the 3 kind of security adds we have to do for Stripe.js at a bare minimum, but that will allow users to use and interact with the Stripe.js component when they want to. Thank you.